Good morning. The Tuesday, April 11, 2017 regular BCC meeting will now be called to order. We'll begin today's meeting with a moment of silence and reflection for all of our first responders. Please rise. Thank you all. We'll now have the invocation by Rabbi Michael Bernholz of the Temple Beth Shalom, and then we'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Counselor Dylan Reingold. Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. As I stand here before our county commission and before so many folks from the community, I want to wish everybody that is celebrating in Indian River County a happy Passover. I also am very much aware that it is Holy Week, and so I hope all that are observing Holy Week and preparing for Easter are having a wonderful preparation or experience, meaningful experience of their observance as well. As I stand here, this is the first morning, the beginning of Passover, and last night I had the opportunity with my family to have a Passover Seder, in which not only did my son chant the 4 questions in Hebrew as we all stared at him, and he nervously had to live up to his responsibility as the youngest, but we also had that age-old question that I don't think is just a Jewish question, it's really a true religious question: when do we eat? I'm sure I am not the only religious leader that's been asked, Dad, how long is this going to go on for? We're hungry already. But as I say that, and I realize how much of our Passover tradition is all about food, about the meal that we get to have, the matzo ball soup that we get to have, finding the afikomen, which the reward, although it is a piece of matzah, is in fact supposed to be dessert that you hide to hold your children's attention. So much of our Seder is about food, and that wondering when we get past all the religious stuff to get to the food so that we can eat and enjoy our moment together. I do realize, and everybody realizes, that the whole point of Passover is to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. How do we connect with God's experience? How do we understand that experience of our ancestors? And how do we take that experience into ourselves so that we make this world a better place? Helping everyone who needs to be free find freedom, find liberty, find a safe place to live. Even as I say that, I also acknowledge that here we are in the midst, in the Jewish tradition, of the reading of the book of Leviticus, which would be really easy to discount it because it's all a bunch of sacrifices. I call it holy barbecue, but they don't just sacrifice animals to burn up the animals and throw blood around. They're doing these very powerful holy rituals which focus on food, on eating of roasted meat, of eating cakes, of having libation offerings and herbs and incense and all of these incredible, powerful things. It would be so easy to get drawn into the food or onto the grossness of the sacrifices and miss what's at the heart of the book of Leviticus, a section called Kedoshim, called holiness. And in the middle of Leviticus, in the middle of this book that is the center of the Torah, of these 5 books of Moses, is this section about holiness. And it would be easy to say, oh, it's about holiness. God is holy, God is awesome, God is magnificent. But if you really look at Kedoshim, you see something different. We, Israel, will be holy because God is holy. And how are we holy? We're holy by taking care of the widow, the stranger, and the orphan. We're holy because of the way we take care of our workers. We're holy because we stop and understand the holiness of time. We're holy not because God is of religious experiences, but of how we treat our fellow humans around us, the kind of community that we build, and the way that we connect and find holiness in time. That's what the whole Seder is about. That's what the whole Torah is about. That's what it means to be holy, about creating that sense of dignity and humanity and holiness, of not just seeing that God is holy, but seeing that we are holy in the way that we're all made in God's image. And so I offer this blessing for our county commission, but for our whole community as well. There is holiness when we strive to be true to the best we know. There is holiness when we are kind to someone who cannot possibly be of service to us. There is holiness when we promote family harmony. There is holiness when we are willing to be laughed at for what we believe in. There is holiness when we remember the lonely and bring cheer into the dark corner. There is holiness when we share our bread, our ideas, our enthusiasm. There is holiness when we gather to pray to the one who gives us power to pray. And there is holiness when we bring our light and our spirit to create this time and this place as a place of holiness. In the Christian tradition, it is Holy Week. In Judaism, it is the week of Passover. In so many of our traditions, we try to connect with something greater than ourselves. Let us find that sense of that greater than ourselves when we take care of each other and bring that sense of holiness into our world. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And Rob, thank you for that invocation. For those who have never experienced a Seder, it makes Thanksgiving look like a snack on the go. If you'll notice, the rabbi mentioned food several times. Thank you again, and speedy recovery. Next item on the agenda is any additions, deletions to the agenda, any emergency items, commissioners?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. First item on the agenda will be a proclamation presentation. This is a presentation of a proclamation honoring Gail Kavanaugh, and that will be presented by Commissioner Tim Zorc.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know we have a number of folks that are here today, and I'll explain that Gail is not with us in the commission chambers, but she is connected watching us live at where she's at this morning. So Maddie, if you and the other folks are going to speak after the proclamation want to come up and grab a podium or two. This might take a few minutes, but after the years of service Gail's done to the Treasure Coast and to Vero Beach, if you could indulge us a few extra minutes after the proclamation. This is a proclamation honoring Gail Kavanaugh. Whereas Gail Kavanaugh served as the Executive Vice President of Treasure Coast Builders Association from 1979, the year I graduated, through 2011, 32 years. Whereas Gail Kavanaugh was appointed to the St. Lucie County Commissioner to the Florida Inland Navigation District Fine from 2008 to 2015, serving as chair in 2014. Whereas in 1981, Gail Kavanaugh received the Selden Hale Award by the National Association of Home Builders, NAHB, for Outstanding New Association Executive, and in 1996 received the Career Achievement in Association as an association executive, the only executive officer in the country, in the entire United States, to earn both designations. Whereas Gail Kavanaugh served on NAHB's Executive Officers Council from 1989 until 1992, and as president in 1991. And whereas Gail Kavanaugh received the Florida Home Builders Association Executive Officer of the Year in 1992. And whereas Gail Kavanaugh served as a board member for the United Way in St. Lucie County from 2002 through 2010. And whereas Gail Kavanaugh served as past treasurer of the Fort Pierce Main Street Association. Whereas Gail Kavanaugh served on the 19th Judicial Nominating Committee to select judges from 1995 and 1999. And whereas Gail Kavanaugh was appointed by Governor Bush to the St. Lucie County Expressway and Bridge Authority from 2001 until 2004. Whereas Gail Kavanaugh was appointed to the St. Lucie County High-Speed Rail Committee and Fort Pierce Harbor Advisory Board by the St. Lucie County Commission from 2000 through 2006. And whereas Gail Kavanaugh currently serves as a board member of Big Brothers Big Sisters of St. Lucie, Okeechobee, and Indian River County since 2006 and served as chairman in 2009. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, that the board expresses its deep appreciation for the services performed by Gail Kavanaugh and recognize her lifetime dedication to the community, adopted this 11th day of April 2017. And I have two other items to read for folks that are in Tallahassee and couldn't be here this morning. This is from past President Senator Ken Pruitt, House Member Ken Pruitt, Treasure Coast Builder Member Ken Pruitt, and Gail used the, many will laugh when they hear this, she just said, Ken, it's only 1 hour a month, you know. That's how Gail got all of us into becoming involved in the association. So these are the words that Ken Pruitt had sent me. To know Gail Kavanaugh is to love Gail Kavanaugh. Gail has been a tremendous influence in ensuring the American dream become a reality to thousands of families purchasing a home and to the tradespeople and professionals who construct them. Our community is better because of her unselfish service and love for this special place we all call home. Gail Kavanaugh has been a difference maker in every sense of the term, and we are grateful for the passion and dedication to every cause she embraces. Gail Kavanaugh will forever be a standard bearer for community service and volunteerism. Thank you, Gail, for all that you have done for all of us. Your legacy will forever stand the test of time. Also, we have Dr. Massey would like to express his sincere thanks for the establishment of the Scholarship Foundation through Indian River State College and all the hard work she's done on workforce training, and also the scholarships that provided countless opportunities for local families and members to attend the Indian River State College. Kind of some personal comments. Gail and I have literally traveled the world together, from China to Anchorage, Alaska, to countless trips to Washington, D.C. and Tallahassee. From the first time I met Gail in, I think, 1981, 82 maybe, shortly after high school, Gail came in and said, hey, you know, it's only 1 hour a month. Do you want to become part of the association? From your ideas of building the many outdoor classrooms that are still on the campuses of elementary schools from Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin counties, where kids today still enjoy those outdoor classroom learning experiences, and those were some of the ideas spearheaded by Gail. Also, the day we went to meet with Frank Brogan in Tallahassee to get more pro-housing industry textbooks brought into the school curriculum in the state. That was another undertaking. It was always handy because Gail could always pick up the phone and call the governor, and he would answer it when she would call. From that 1 hour commitment led me on to the, Gail suggested maybe I would like to go to spokesman's training in 1985 in Chicago, and I would tell you I would not be where I am today and experience the things that I have if it wasn't for Gail's stewardship, watching over me. I called her my mom on the road when my parents weren't at that age. Traveling the country on your own wasn't, so it was either Gail or my parents. So I'm very sincerely thankful, Gail, for all that you have done for my personal career, from judges to visits to the White House that we shared together. It's really been a lifelong experience, and I thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you. Thank you, Maddie. Come on up, Peter.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Peter Robinson, and I'm here representing the Builders Association. To tell you a little bit about Gail, I was actually there when Gail was first hired by the Builders Association. And you know, on this Saturday, we'll be celebrating Jackie Robinson Day out at historic Dodgertown. And Gail was really a pioneer, just as Jackie was a pioneer in his business, Gail was a pioneer in her business. When the Builders Association hired her, the comment, once again, she was interviewed by all men, and the comment was, well, let's hire the woman because we know she'll work for less. But Gail was like Jackie, because as you know, Jackie won the Rookie of the Year award, and Gail won the Rookie of the Year award. And then she went on to be the best in her field. And the other great thing that she did for us was, besides being a great leader in the Builders Association, She also was very active in AA, and she mentored thousands of people in the whole Treasure Coast. And many of them who are productive today can thank Gail for her leadership. And she was always very true to the spiritual things that she learned in AA. So we're just blessed that we had her. We're blessed that she was a pioneer and that she was willing to put up with some of the abuse that she had to from a bunch of male builders. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maddie Williams. I'm the current executive officer of the Treasure Coast Builders Association, and I would like to thank all of you on behalf of Gail Kavanaugh. Hopefully she is watching if the technology worked, and our very dear friend Nancy, who also has worked with the association for over 30 years. So on Gail's behalf, thank you so much for this honor. I know how much she appreciates it, and you are all very near and dear to her heart. So thank you again.
Thank you. Would you like to come up for a photo with us, and we'll gather the rest of you up here in front.
Everybody?
Thank you.
Yeah, they want everybody.
You're not allowed the picture, Peter.
Peter. See you. Counselor. Andy. Thank you. Thank you.
And then scoot a little to
Slide down to your right some. No,
and then
a couple more over on this side, or Andy, come on over here. And then y'all should do a missing person formation.
Ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2.
And is a possibility that Gail is watching? Yes. So could we all say thank you, Gail? Thank you, Gail.
You too.
Okay, do. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of proclamation recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And I have the honors of delivering that. And I see Captain Kirby is here amongst a sea of telecommunication experts, so why don't you all come on down? Sandy got you here. And I see our sheriff and many people that make up the support team and the organization known as Telecommunications. But before I deliver the proclamation, I just want to say that the public, when they dial 911, they look for a person to take information. They refer to that individual as a 911 operator. I think that's very short. It's far more than that. They are the first of first responders. They have critical information being broadcast by no fault of their own, or the person on the other end of the phone has the capacity to be able to deliver accurate, clear information so deputies, law enforcement officers, and paramedics and firefighters can respond to a scene. And it's a very difficult job, probably one of the most difficult jobs in law enforcement. No offense to anybody that's wearing a uniform, I did it myself, but our telecommunications individuals should be highly commended, and it's a great honor and privilege that I give you this proclamation today that we've all supported. You know, when you think back, when I think back of times in my career, sometimes you forget the names of individuals that were wearing uniform. And I shouldn't admit this, but not that I hear voices, It's not good to do that in the public, but I do remember the voices. I can hear the conversation of Patrice and Lou and Lee and Sue and Sandy, because they ensured that we got home safe, we got accurate information to be able to respond. And it is an unbelievable relationship that you have when you have the public being connected to law enforcement. So I want to thank you all before we give you this proclamation. Proclamation reads as follows: recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Indian River County Sheriff's Office Dispatch Center. And whereas public safety dispatches are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety dispatches are a vital link to our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. Whereas public safety dispatches of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of crime, and the treatment of patients. They are knowledgeable and highly trained individuals who work closely with police, fire, and medical personnel. Whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during their performance of their duties in the past year. And whereas the Indian River County Sheriff's Office Public Safety Dispatches dispatch 252,438 calls for service for law enforcement and 28,305 calls for fire rescue in 2016 alone. Whereas in Indian River County Sheriff's Office, the public safety dispatches answered 63,044 911 calls and 79,577 administrative calls. Whereas each year, the second full week of April is dedicated to the men and women who serve as public safety telecommunicators. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board recognizes the week of April 9th through April 15th, 2017 be designated as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Indian River County in honor of the men and women who serve and diligence and professionalism and keep our county and citizens safe. Duly adopted this 11th day of April 2017, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Sandy?
People don't call 911 for good reasons. They usually call when they're in the middle of an awful misfortune. The mother who calls when her child has fallen in the pool and hysterical because the child's not breathing and the operator walks them through that. Or the spouse that has discovered that their loved one has expired, either due to a self-infliction or because of some other means of life. It's difficult, it's hard to be a 911 operator, and it's oftentimes very unrewarding. It's a self-reward that we have doing the job that we do. The stress of the calls in and of themselves are overwhelming. We teach the children, our children and the public to call 911, to trust our 911 operators that we're going to help them or get help to them. The federal government is nearing to making a decision to, considering whether or not to update the classification system that describes occupations in the United States. And for their dedication and the life-saving nature of their work, We're asking for your help in recognizing that a 911 operator is a professional. Because this is National Telecommunicators Week, APCO, or the Association of Public Communications Officials, has taken the opportunity to launch a petition, a White House petition, entitled 911 Professionals Should Be Recognized for Protecting and Saving Lives, because they want to see us reclassified as protective service occupants. So we encourage you and everyone that you know to go online and sign this petition so that our 911 professionals receive the recognition and the respect for the job that they do. The deadline to collect 100,000 signatures is May 7th of 2017, and the website is apco.org White House Petition. That's apcointl.org/White House Petition. Thank you very much for honoring us during this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Great job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Great job.
Sandy.
Appreciate it. Thanks for
Yes.
all you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was a good hire. Good man.
Sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have to shift over to the left a little bit. Sheriff, lead your troops. And we have the proclamation, and Sandy, we got it. Now, all of this, the telecommunication employees could not be here, so they're, hopefully they'll see this later on when they're not busy working in the comm center, so we want to say thank you to them too. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a presentation proclamation that will be presented by Commissioner O'Brien, and that will be a presentation to observe April 2017 as Aviation Appreciation Month. And Captain? I believe
Yeah, we got Eric Menger.
Captain Menger has a crew to receive. Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Eric.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning.
Go ahead and read the proclamation, then you can introduce your entourage
Okay.
there and give us a few words.
Happy to.
Great. It's a proclamation observing April 2017 as Aviation Appreciation Month. Whereas aviation plays a critical role in the lives of our citizens, as well as in the operation of our businesses and agriculture. And whereas the state of Florida has declared the month of April 2017 as Aviation Appreciation Month, and the state of Florida has a significant interest in the continued vitality of aviation, aircraft and aerospace manufacturing, commercial service and community airports, and aviation education. And whereas there are 20 commercial service and 108 general aviation community airports in Florida, and more than 8.5% of the Florida gross state product results from businesses dependent upon aviation. And whereas Florida's commercial airports accommodate more than 149.3 million passengers annually, ranking Florida second in the nation, and international airports in Florida accommodate more than 30.4 million international passengers annually, which is 20.4% of the total international passengers in the nation. And whereas more than half, over 50.5%, of Florida's visitors arrive each year by air, and Florida's general aviation community airports accommodate more than 9 million visitors and business travelers annually. And whereas air cargo operations account for more than $10.3 billion in annual economic activity to Florida, which represents 8% of the nation's air cargo, and in total, aviation presents more than $144 billion in annual economic activity in Florida. And whereas numerous leading aviation companies have headquarters or a major presence in Florida, and whereas organizations like the Florida Airports Council, the Florida Aviation Business Association, Florida Aviation Aerospace Alliance, the Alliance for Aviation Across America, National Business Aviation Association, National Association of State Aviation Officials, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, and the National Air Transportation Association recognize and promote the interest and importance of aviation in Florida and throughout the world. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board does hereby proclaim the month of April 2017 as Aviation Appreciation Month. Adopted this 11th day of April 2017, signed and endorsed by all 5 county commissioners. And Eric, those are some pretty big numbers y'all are doing there. Why don't you tell us how you get all that done?
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Mr. Chair and all the county commissioners and the staff of the county for taking the time and bringing us up this morning. We really do appreciate it at the Vero Beach Regional Airport. Those are some big numbers. There's no doubt about it. You know, millions and millions of passengers, billions of dollars and cargo that is generated by airports in the state. And Vero Beach Regional Airport is no exception in being an economic engine for our community. Our economic impact in 2014 was $468 million for 1 year. And of course, that's not due to my efforts. We do have an airline now. Everybody knows Elite Airways is flying, and we're now flying to Asheville starting in May. But that's really a small portion of the economic activity at the airport. Everybody hears about the airline. You know, that's what people want to see. They want to see those baggage, you know, handlers, and they want to see an aircraft taking off on a schedule, and we have that now. But for many years, since the 50s and 60s, we have generated, you know, jobs and business at the airport and for the community for a long, long time. And so I'm happy to introduce here a couple of the real, you know, generators of jobs at the airport. These are the people that create the profit. These are the people that pay the taxes, that hire the people, that allow us to have over 500 nonprofits in this county which help our community. But these are the people that are actually doing the work out there. So I want to introduce it first. John Calcagna, who's the Chief Financial Officer for Piper, and then also ask Nancy Ritter from Flight Safety to say a few words. So first, John.
Thank you. This year, Piper Aircraft celebrates our 80th anniversary, 60 years right here in Vero Beach. On behalf of our 750 employees, we'd like to thank the airport and the community for the outstanding support we receive. We look forward to being in Vero Beach another 60 years. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little bit younger than them. But for all of the 500 students and teammates that are present at Flight Safety Academy, we're very thankful to be here today, and we're honored to be a part of this. We've enjoyed now 50 years as part of Indian River County, this being our 50th anniversary, and we're really looking forward to the next 50 years. So thank you for supporting everything to do with aviation, because it's so important to so many families that live in Indian River. Thank you.
And another happy anniversary. That's great.
Thank you.
Is that it? I'll get to stay right more. Congratulations. Great work. Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all want a picture or?
Next item on the agenda is something called the Florida Bicycle Association, and that'll be a presentation for the Florida Bicycle Association 2016 Law Enforcement Agency of the Year Award and the Florida Bicycle Association 2016 Program of the Year Award. And that will be by Becky Alfonso, and I know that the sheriff is here, and we have a cast of individuals who have geared up to ride bikes. There's no bike riding in the commission chambers. Please, come on up.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing this presentation this morning. The Florida Bicycle Association, known as FBA, is a membership-based 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is bicycling education and promotion of safe cycling. FBA is not a bicycle club. We are and always will be people, businesses, organizations, and communities working together to build a bicycle-friendly Florida to benefit all. And this is our 20th anniversary. FBA annually recognizes those for their outstanding contributions to make Florida a state where bicycling is safe, respected, and encouraged as a means of transportation and recreation. And I believe last year at this time I was here, we actually had 4 awards in the Indian River County, and it's good to be back. This is certainly an area that has captured our attention with regards to bicycling. So this year I'm here to present 2 awards. Early last year, Sheriff Lohr met with Bike Walk Indian River County and Vero Cycling, Inc., board members to discuss bicycle and pedestrian safety. From this meeting, a training tool called Florida Bicycle Law for the Law Enforcement Professional was developed to ensure the deputies understood current bicycle laws. And I understand the sessions went well between the organizing parties and the education, and I'm sure the sheriff can vouch for that. In addition, Sheriff Lohr directed that new tracking codes be implemented on the deputies' cars' computers to reflect bicycle-related stops. In the last 9 months of 2016, more than 650 stops were made for riding on the wrong side of the street or riding without lights at night. As a result, over 75 light sets were distributed, and the deputies even installed them on the bikes for the riders. The Sheriff's Office created a public safety announcement video highlighting the need for motorists to give 3 feet of clearance to pass bikes and posted this on their website. Sheriff Lohr also assigned Deputy Teddy Floyd to manage the collection, rehab, and distribution of bicycles to children and the needy in Indian River County. Last year, 336 bikes were acquired, rehabbed, and donated to the needy, and in December alone, an additional 250 bikes were donated. Many of the recipients of these bikes have no other form of transportation, so the bikes help them to get to and from work, and it's a source of their pride and independence. Sheriff Lohr is an extraordinary example of leadership and commitment to bicycle and pedestrian safety in Indian River County. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office is truly having a major impact on the lives of the pedestrians and people riding bicycles in this community. It is my honor this morning to present Sheriff Lohr and the Indian River County Sheriff's Office our 2016 Law Enforcement Agency of the Year Award. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Briefly, Commissioners, just to let you know, this relationship started some years ago. It is an honor and a pleasure to receive this. As you know, there's 67 sheriff's offices in the state of Florida, as well as about 350 police departments. And the teamwork that we had, not only with Deputy Teddy Floyd, but with Major Eric Flowers, putting all these things together getting the lights and the training that they provided our deputies at squad briefings is truly tremendous. We're making a difference in Indian River County with respect to our petacyclists. So thank you on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Hey, Sheriff, I'm looking forward to this year's budget workshop when you come in and turn in your vehicle, and we don't have to buy you a bicycle now. We'll be saving thousands of dollars, so I appreciate it. Great job, Sheriff.
Okay.
Okay, now part two.
Thank you.
All right, about 6 years ago, Deputy Teddy Floyd of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office and Malcolm Allen, owner of Orchid Island Bikes and Kayaks, quietly began collecting donated bicycles. They rehabbed the bicycles and gave them away at Christmas to adults who needed transportation but could not afford a bicycle, and also to children in the Guilford neighborhood whose families could not afford to buy bikes for Christmas. Now, in early 2016, Julianne Price and the Florida Department of Health noted that there are still a lot of people in this county who need a bicycle but cannot afford one. Malcolm and Teddy needed help. Members of Vero Cycling, a local recreational bicycle club, and Bike Walk Indian River County, which is the local safety advocacy group, stepped in and helped out. Mike Vincent began organizing volunteers to meet monthly to rehab the bikes. Gene and Jake Piper stepped in to help expand the program by meeting monthly with residents at 3 local homeless shelters, either to provide bike maintenance for those who already own bikes or to provide free bikes and helmets for people without them. Bike safety education classes were added to the distribution of bikes, taught by local league cycling instructors. Donations were collected to purchase quality light sets to be installed on all of the rehab bikes, and bikes brought to the homeless shelters for repair. The program has rehabbed and distributed approximately 250 bikes, serviced another 247 bikes, and installed light sets on 206 bicycles. This is known as the Bike Rehab Project, and this is a community effort with a wide base of volunteer support of both time and money. The key to success lies with the leadership team. Those key players are Malcolm Allen, Deputy Teddy Floyd, Jake and Gene Piper, Julianne Price, Mike Vincent, Tom, and a guy I understand is known as Red. So it is my honor this morning to present the leadership team of the Bike Rehab Project, our 2016 Program of the Year Award. Should we give it to Red?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know, hold up, show Malcolm.
Malcolm, you want to say a few words, or Teddy?
Get up there, Red.
I'll say something.
What you looking?
This is by all means very much appreciated, but definitely a team effort. It's something that Teddy and I started, and quite honestly, Teddy came to me, and I'm just the one that said, yeah, go for it, bring the bikes in. This gentleman right here, who is Red, is the man who really got his hands greasy and dirty and actually got the bikes back out on the street so that Teddy could then distribute them. So the program all started with him, with his hard work and dedication. We thank Teddy for all he does in the community, and really for Vero Cycling Club and its many members who just volunteer selflessly of their time and come into the shop. We want to thank United Against Poverty as well, who provides basically free room and board. They have provided us free use of a warehouse where these hundreds of bikes can be stored as they're being donated. And just every single week we have members of the community show up at our business, at our shop, and just happened yesterday, said, hey, I heard about your bike rehab program. Here's a couple of old bikes that we no longer need. You can have them. So many of the bikes are coming from the community, and we thank them for that and for all the many volunteers that make this happen.
Right. Hi, Commission. Mike Vincent. I was asked, actually, when this program came up a year ago or so, Hugh Ahrens I called him and I said, Hugh, that's a great idea, what a great concept. And he said, hey, how about you running the thing? So that's how Hugh kind of works. But I took his challenge, and I've met a great bunch of people, and we are basically, the bike rehab group, are standing on the shoulders of giants. Teddy, with the permission of the sheriff, and Malcolm and his staff have been very instrumental in making this happen, and we're just taking the next step further, and I'm very thankful. Speaking of anniversaries, a year ago tomorrow, we were inside this commission chambers asking for a change in county ordinance to acquire bike parts and bikes at the distribution center in Oslo. And that was granted, and that's also helped us continue our process of getting bikes and getting parts and so forth. Himanshu was very instrumental in that, with Commissioner Solari and the commission, obviously. And Bruce, who runs the program over there at Oslo, and his staff have been very, very helpful also. Last thing real quick, we've been growing, we've had some growing pains, learned a lot of things with these various organizations. I think we're on the right track. There's a lot of safety programs going on. Helmets are being distributed, lights are being given out, we're starting to do locks, so it's definitely going in the right direction. But I'll give you two success stories recently that I've seen. We were at one of our programs one day doing bicycle repairs only, and a gentleman came to me and said, hey, I heard there are a place where I can get bikes and so forth, and as you know, when you say something is free, everybody wants one. So we kind of try to screen or monitor who gets the bikes. So as the day went on, I could tell this gentleman really needed a bike. He had told me he just had a new job and so forth, so we went and got him a bike on the side. And he told me where he was working and so forth. Several months later, I go to this restaurant where he said he was working, and lo and behold, there is that bike locked up on the outside of the restaurant. So it's helping him get to his job, and it's working very well for him. Another woman contacted me. She was basically a guardian ad litem for an adult. He had recovered from drugs and different abuse problems, and she was helping him integrate back into society. We got him a bicycle. He wanted to pay me full price for the bike. I told him that his money was no good for us, but I understood the concept of paying for ownership and things like that, so I charged him $5 for his bicycle. She and he went into his little box. He had folders for his bills all lined up. He was learning how to spend the money that he earned, so it's very instrumental for him to learn that process, and he is going over the bridge to work in the restaurant where he's at. So these are success stories. There are many of them, and I think it's a very great program. I want to thank everyone for all their help, including my assistance in the rehab program. Here he comes.
Good morning, Commissioner. First of all, I want to thank Sheriff Eric, Major Flowers. I want to thank my partner Julianne, and I want to thank Red because, and Malcolm and the whole bike family. That's my bike family, and Red, when it started out, he and Malcolm, I used to get loads and loads, and I want to thank Walmart because they used to have them out there, and we get them and bring them. And I want to thank my partner Joe, who used to ride. So during Christmas, we would try to find a way, or during the holidays, to help some kids to make sure, because every kid didn't get a bike. Red and Malcolm was sitting there, so I brought this truckload of about 50 bikes over there, and you could see by the time I left, Red was buried up under them bikes. And he said, Teddy, what do you want? I don't know. However you want to do it, we got to get them out before Christmas. And they would work diligently, night, day. He would bring in the crew. I want to thank Mike and Hugh, them, those guys. We were able to help a whole lot. The stats don't even tell you. We gave out more than maybe 900 bikes of helping people. If one of our guys, I would monitor our stats at the sheriff's office. If there was a DUI and he had a family, we wanted to make sure that he continued to take care of his family. And I want to thank the sheriff for that, because he would always, any inventory that we recovered, he would give them to me. We would get them out. And it's just refreshing that when you look back and you see a kid and he tells you, and he walks to the truck and he tells you, go, my mom cannot afford a bike. I cannot. And every kid is picking at him. And we give him a bike and a smile on that kid's face. So I want to thank everybody here, my partner Julianne, all the Gifford community. We rode through the community, and they got a chance, and people are bringing bikes from all over the county. This is probably one of the best things when you be able to give back. And I just thank God for that. And I thank God for you, commissioners.
Teddy? No, Teddy, thank you for being a driving force. And, you know, I'm looking at, I heard Mr. Malcolm Allen say, you know, it's the team effort.
Yes.
But I have to say that when we had a bike program about 18 years ago, and it was came to a sudden halt because of liability issues. You see, deputy sheriffs cannot tighten up bicycles and fix chains and inflate tires because I guess it's an advanced art. But due to the liability issue, we had to stop the bike rodeos and all of the functions. And then one guy came aboard. We had a wonderful experience known as Malcolm Allen.
Yes.
And Malcolm said, I could do that with his successful business. He could have just continued on with what he was doing, but he donated countless hours for every rodeo we had, and any time that we had an unusual experience with a bike or something that looked like the shell of a bike. Malcolm, thank you for turning it into a gift for an individual that did not have mobility without your gifted hands and everyone's gifted hands. But I wanted to point that out.
Yeah. You know, we would be remorse. I said Walmart, but I want to make sure that Mark Rogers noticed because every day from Sebastian, I got a calendar on everybody's thing, so I make sure that I get all the bikes. And Mr. Yuri over on this store, they're calling me every day. I got bikes, Teddy. I got bikes. And I'm always looking over at Jake and Malcolm and all of the guys that say, man, here I come with another load of bikes. And I got bikes stretched out all through the county because people that know what we're doing donate the space. There's like, Teddy, you can park them in here. So I probably got 900 bikes stretched around all around the community. But, you know, but every kid will not go without. And I'm fortunate to have a boss like Sheriff Laura who's always there. When I walk in or Major Flowers to say go, and my partner Julianne, we sit there and we'll be sitting there arguing about what can we do to make Indian River County better. And here it is, a kid asked for a bike, and it's built relationships with our deputies, with the community, so I'm great with that. I'm good.
Thank you.
Great job, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Great job, yeah, you bet, thank you. Thank you.
Chairman, if I could add one more thing. This
Most
is
certainly,
our
Becky.
spring issue where we have made our announcements for the recipients, and in our summer issue, we'll write up the narratives. I'm going to leave these out in the front, copies of it for you.
And they'll be available in the back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all again. Safe riding. Next item is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of February 21st, regular meeting of March 7th, and the regular meeting of March 14th.
So moved.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Zorc. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Informational items is the Fellsmere Water Control District interlocal agreement, signed, sealed, and delivered. Thank you, Counselor. On the consent agenda, we have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item 8D.
8D Delta? Thank you. I have some interest with that too. Is anyone else? Is there any member of the public that wishes to pull an item for further discussion? Seeing none, commissioners?
Hold on.
Oh.
Is that okay?
Would you like an item pulled?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was going to speak to 8D.
Right. Within moments, we will be. So there's further interest in...
To approve the consent as amended.
Second. That's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 8D is dealing with our West Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility, and I pulled it for two main reasons. One is under staff recommendation, there's two requests to waive the requirements for bids and authorize the purchasing manager to purchase some equipment. One item is for $32,926.05. And the other item, piece of equipment, is for $29,900. I'm fine with the staff purchasing this equipment, but because it was waiving the bid requirements, I just thought it would be appropriate and transparent to put that out in the open so the public is aware of the action we're taking. The second reason for pulling the item is not at this point, but at some point in the future, I'd like staff to come back. And I think we need to have kind of an updated evaluation of our reuse system. I know back, gosh, it's been 7 or 8 years now, we came out with a new pricing format for the reuse water. And I think back at that time, we viewed the reuse as a commodity, and that we expected that the water management districts would start curtailing the amount of water used through consumptive use permit process, and that a lot of the large users of water would start going to reuse. And I don't think that's really happened. My understanding is that the water management districts are still issuing the consumptive use permits. I have heard some complaints that the price of the reuse is too high. So I think I'd like to have staff come back with kind of an evaluation and a report of, you know, who is using our reuse, what are we doing with it, and also looking forward as we move forward with more septic to sewer conversions. We're going to have more and more reuse to dispose of in one way or the other. There's only so many golf courses, and the golf courses can only take so much. So I think we need to look for new markets, so to speak, for the reuse, whether it be agriculture or urban development. You know, a lot of times now when a new development comes in, our land development codes require them to put in water and sewer pipe. And at some point, we may need to consider whether they need to also lay purple pipe for irrigation and reuse. So I'd just like to have staff come back. I think we need to look at our reuse system. Do we change the pricing to make it cheaper and more affordable? And then we pick up the cost in an update of our sewer rates. And I know that staff is doing a rate study now, and that might be one thing we need to look at, is whether the cost of making the reuse, distributing the reuse, should go more into the sewer rate and make the price of the water cheaper so we get more users to use it. I think just all ideas I'd like to have the board have full discussion on, but while this item was here, I thought I'd just bring this up and ask staff to take a look at this and come back at some point in the future with a report on that. And with that, I'll be glad to go ahead and move approval of staff recommendation with the purchase of those two items, waiving the bid requirements, and move forward with the item.
Second.
And I think Mr. Adair, I don't know if he still wants to speak to this.
For the record, Robert Adair. I work for the Florida Research Center. I reside at 7060 33rd Street. Basically, I'm going to say amen to Commissioner O'Brien. I just want to say that based on new science, we have a new paradigm for citrus in our county. As you all know, citrus is infected with HLB, or citrus greening disease. That disease is the worst pest pathogen complex that the citrus industry, not only in the state of Florida, but in the United States, in Brazil, and around the world has ever faced. It threatens the very viability of the citrus industry. Interestingly, rather coincidentally, artesian water is anathema to citrus, meaning that the high salt content and the high bicarbonates and the high pH interferes with the root system to pull up nutrients. So the roots are weakened by the greening disease. The bacteria plugs the conductive tissue of the tree, and the roots become very susceptible to a fungus and then die. And what recent research conducted by the University of Florida, Lake Alfred, has shown that by reducing the pH, by reducing the salinity, and by reducing the bicarbonates, and irrigating with better quality water, the trees, as a therapy, get a lot better. Remarkably, your purple pipe water is ideal for citrus irrigation. It's being promoted by DEP, EPA, Florida Department of Agriculture, World Health Organization, virtually every agency, regulatory agency involved with production of edible fruit crops. It is permitted to go on to citrus as irrigation, not as spray water, but as irrigation. So in looking at this purple pipe, I see tremendous advantages for agriculture, I see tremendous advantages for the environment, and I see a tremendous economic advantage. Right now, you have 4 million gallons of water per day licensed or permitted to go into the lateral D. It goes in as class 3 water, which is fine, but that 4 million gallons per day that's now class 3 water would be unbelievably valuable to the citrus groves that are west of town. So you have white egret marsh to the west of the West Wastewater Treatment Plant. Considerations could be made by staff and your engineering firm and the esteemed members of this commission to look at the possibility of making that water available to the citrus growers in the marsh, AKA west of 95, for water farming. This water could then be a source for alternative water supply source for potable water if treated properly. Expanding the purple pipe east of 95 and making water available to the west is an ambitious task, surely expensive, but something that's very important to look at. You have a very good utilities department, good structure. You have purple pipe in the ground. The purple pipe east of 95 goes down to an area of abandoned citrus that's just laying fallow. If this purple pipe were available for agricultural use in that area, it would assure that area of remaining in agriculture rather than sporadic ranchettes and homes and possible expansion into the urban service area. So I just highly recommend that you explore this as Commissioner O'Brien has maintained. If you have any questions about the research or greening or the use of this water, I'd be happy to do it. I think it's something that we could talk about perhaps in the Agriculture Advisory Committee where we can get more of the growers to speak their minds and address this issue. And thank you very much for your time today.
Mr. Dare, thank you. And I realize that looking at the agenda item and consent, there's a lot of complicated moving parts, and there was some concern about the waivers and what has to be done to get this mission accomplished. It just appears that we're in the same predicament that we were some 8-10 years ago of an overabundance of reuse water that we have to properly handle due to strict regulations. And you might have a viable solution if we can further talk about that in the future. But I think we need to address the situation now and have that consent order signed so we can move forward.
And Mr. Chairman, it wasn't in my motion, but with the board's consensus to have staff come back and update us on the reuse, is that everybody? Okay.
I'd like to see that. Yeah, and and amended on second. Thank you. Any further discussion here from the board? Any further discussion from the community?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question for Vinnie relating to this. On the,
Hit it.
As we're going through adding some other things for staff to do, I had a conversation with the utilities director kind of about out-of-town delivery folks that are coming using our facility. Do we have the ability to ever do a turnaway if we find something that is, I don't want to say suspect, or it's throwing us over our limits because of what they're bringing in from out of county, or I guess it could be in county as well. But do we have the ability to not accept somebody's material? And if we don't, is that something that you would like to have the ability to do as we're looking?
Right. That's a good question. For the record, Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. There's actually two things that are pretty specific. One is our FDE permit at the West Wastewater Treatment Plant that specifically says that we should identify any influent loadings that may upset our ability to comply with the permit. The second is we have industrial pretreatment per our ordinance that says that there should be certain nutrient or parameters met before we accept that waste, and so we are in the process right now. We don't have all our ducks in a row to gather as much information as possible, but as I had alluded to in the backup, that we've kind of been open for business for a number of years and have not been as involved in the oversight of what's coming in. I'll give you an example. We're receiving waste from hospitals in other counties, from other treatment plants, and there's no testing that has been done either at those plants or prior to us receiving those that could, we don't know for sure, but could have the ability to have what we call a pass-through to then send it on down the line. So we're looking at that right now. We're trying to gather some information. That's why we're asking for this unit process engineer to assist us, and then we hope to come back to the board with an update of what we find.
Okay, so feel free to, any other resources you need or authority you need as you bring something back, to include what you need to do to protect us, the taxpayers, and our utility system for here to.
That's a good point. We are scheduling a local meeting here with some of the haulers to explain to them what it is that we're facing, to explain to them the process. We've already put a couple people on notice not to continue to come to Indian River County because of some of the things that we have found. They certainly don't like that because we are the only game in town, so to speak. The next closest shop is West Palm Beach, Palm Bay. Brevard County doesn't even accept out-of-county waste, so they're kind of just centralized for the area. But certainly we need to take a closer look at what we're doing to be able to protect our interests so that we don't have plant upsets down the line.
Great. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner. And your motion is directing staff to, in addition, is directing staff to look at all options, and we'll have a deep analysis of the cost factors and...
Actually, I just thought the motion was strictly for the agenda item and just by board consensus.
But you said, yeah, to include that.
Well, by board consensus, I didn't want to make it part of the motion. Just
okay.
So just the motion is just a standalone agenda item.
I'm very much interested in Mr. Adair's options, and to see if we can analyze the water and see if it can be used for a better cause than to have to go forward. Okay, anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. With that, we have the next item is the Indian River County Sheriff Darrell Law request for $32,427.16 from the Law Enforcement Trust Fund to be used to purchase equipment and support programs.
Mr. Chairman, we had 9A, the clerk of court first, I think.
I can yield to him.
Jeff, remember the sheriff has a gun, so you might want to let him go ahead of you.
Mine's a little more exciting than the CAFA.
Sheriff, I was trying to get you back to work because
I'm trying to get back there,
the
sir.
CAFA will take some time.
Oh, I know. It's interesting stuff.
I'm sorry.
No, it is. I read it, actually.
I think the sheriff wants to stick around for the CAFA presentation.
You got that right, Jason.
Move the sheriff's request.
Second.
Is this item B or
This is
C?
actually C if it's the 32,000.
C.
Okay.
We're getting to that C. And that's a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by Commissioner Zorc. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Sheriff, while you're up here, let's do 9B, which is the Indian River County Sheriff Darrell Law request for project-generated income reimbursement under the JAG-C grant 2016 JAG-C INRI 3H3195.
Move sheriff's request.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? Great presentation, Sheriff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just real quickly on the one item with respect to the disbursement to the nonprofits. As of July 1 of 2016, as you know, the Florida Legislature amended Statute 932. So the disbursement of 15% of forfeited dollars has been reduced significantly. So all of our nonprofit friends, not to offend anyone, but those dollars that are being released are about 70% less than they would be in the past. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheriff. Sheriff has to get back to work. Now, we have another item here, constitutional offices, which is the Indian River County Clerk of the Court, the Circuit Court, and Controller Jeff R. Smith. Presentation of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, better known as the CAFR, and the popular Annual Financial Report, PAFR. Good morning, Mr. Clerk.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, County Attorney. What I'm going to be doing now is try to take this 400-plus page book and condense it down to a 5-minute little spiel.
Don't dim the lights. Oh, I'm sorry. Just.
As you know, we produce the CAFR every year, which is a comprehensive annual financial report, and here I'm presenting it to you today for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2016. This is a result of the external audit that was completed on March 7th by our CPAs Raymond Robson. They're a local firm with, they're a prior local firm, but they have offices here and they have nationwide offices, but it's a local firm as far as that's concerned. We had an unmodified clean opinion, which means there was no qualifications. We have a clear set of financial statements for our bond raters. No findings or written comments were made by the auditors, which is good. We did have some last year. We have none this year. They did make some constructive suggestions for us, but not to the magnitude that it is required to be mandated in a letter. The CAFR includes and the audit includes all government and enterprise funds, the internal controls, grants, and bond compliance. The county overview, the county level financial statements has the Board of County Commissioners, the Clerk of the Court and Comptroller, Property Appraiser, Sheriff, Supervisor of Elections, and Tax Collector. By GASB requirements, we're required to present a top-level set of financial statements that includes all those entities, and the Auditor General of the State of Florida requires separate financial statements on each of the constitutionals, and that's included in the CAFR as well. The next is a county net position. The overall comment to be made here is that the major differences on the county's net position from 2015 to 2016 resulted in a significant increase in the FRS pension liability. This liability went from $62 million to $111 million this past year. That's quite a bit of an increase, but basically that's a result of the FRS not achieving their projected rate of return. Also, the mortality tables were changed, and also we had some obviously new additional salaries and employees. So the combination of all that, but the majority of that was the fact that the FRS did not hit their projected rate of return for the year. So that's the major change there between 2015 and 2016. The largest part of the liability is public safety between the board, enterprise, our emergency services fund, and the sheriff. The net position components and net investment in capital assets, that's less any debt related to the capital assets. And the increase in the restricted net position was mainly due to capital projects that are set aside for future development in future years. County change in net position, you'll see here in the revenue side that government type revenues increased by $8.7 million from 2015, and most of that was due to increase in property taxes. As the values start to come back, your property values, your property tax receipts rise. Also, $3.6 million in other revenues were due to reimbursement from the roof settlement and the last phase 2 of the State Road 60 project that we lent to the FDOT. They paid us back during the year. Government type expenses, it rose 9.5% over last year. The main part of that was public safety due to some new emergency vehicles purchased and increased salary and benefits for the additional station. All government activities expenses were charged $4.8 million for their share of the FRS liability, and that was calculated by an outside actuary. Business type revenues, charges for services increased about $3.3 million due to the general economy improving. That comprises of $1 million increase in utilities, $1.9 million increase in revenues in SWID, and approximately $500,000 in the building division. As building is starting to take off again, we're seeing an increase there. Business type expenses increased $1.9 million or 4% from 2015. The biggest part of that was solid waste, and the second part of that was the building division as we needed more staff. This is a chart that reviews the source of revenues, and you can see the biggest part of revenues is property taxes, which is 47% of your total revenues. The next part is aggregated between charges for services, operating grants, and sales taxes, which each of those categories are 14% each, and that combines 42%. So that's the major sources of revenue for the county. The next part is the next slide is a review of expenses, and again, majority of the county's expenses are for public safety, which is 47%. Followed by transportation, which is 17%, and general government, which is 17%, and then culture, recreation comes in at 9%. Next slide shows the general fund, and the point to be taken from here is that the general fund reduction of $1.8 million in fund balance is due to the OPEB trust. As you will recall, we made an additional contribution to the OPEB trust. That accomplishes three things. It strengthens the assets of the fund, it reduces the future liability, and it also reduces the ongoing requirement from the employer side to contribute per FTE for the next few years. So we accomplished a lot of good things there by contributing that, that money to the OPEB trust. This is a good slide, but the next one is even going to be better for you to see. We have 4 debt issues, 2 bonds and 2 notes outstanding, remaining at 9/30/2016 for a total of $51.6 million. All of the outstanding debt will be paid off within the next 7 years, with the exception of the spring training bonds. They're due to pay off in 2021, yet they do have an early call in 2019. So we're doing really good on debt, and the next slide will even accentuate that point even further. Going back 10 years, when the Great Recession started in 2007, we were at $137 million in debt, and all during the Great Recession and since then, when other counties were borrowing from themselves and borrowing to make ends meet, we were paying down debt, and now we're down 62% over the last 10 years. We're down to $51.6 million. So there's been a good financial stewardship on the part of your staff and yourselves to get the taxpayers out of debt. And the last slide is some initiatives that we've either completed or are starting. We're continuing the effort, the intensive effort in our tourist tax auditing. It's produced some huge results, great results, and thanks to my internal auditor, Ed Halsey, for that. We've stopped the printing of pay stubs and the stuffing of envelopes, and we now do have the employee self-service. We've resulted in 1,500 less forms being printed each month, just in pay stubs alone. and they can access their deposit, their pay stubs through the employee self-service. Clerk's accounting software was upgraded to the same Munis program that we use for the board, and we also implemented employee self-service on the clerk side, so we're not printing pay stubs there anymore as well. The migration to the Laserfish for all official records of the board is continuing. A link will be placed on the county's website if it hasn't been already. Scott's working on that to allow citizens to access your official records, and also my official records that I keep for the entire county. A link will be on there as well for that. The county has received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for this big book, 33 consecutive years, and we have no reason to believe that this one will not receive that award as well. We also did the PAFR last year for the first time, and we received the award for it. And so I want to thank my staff, led by Finance Director Diane Barnardo, Assistant Finance Director Alyssa Nagy, who soon will be the Finance Director as Diane is retiring this June. My staff accountant, soon to be promoted to Senior Accountant Rayanne Cohn, and my internal auditor Ed Halsey for what they've done. And prior to giving you the PAFR, I want to recognize my staff assistant and RMLO, Laura MacGyver, who designed this thing and created it. And now we're going to go to the PAFR.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add a couple questions on a few of the items Jeff reviewed.
Sure.
I want to
Yeah, I was going to ask
the
you
end,
some
or do them.
questions. Yeah, you can do it now.
On the increase due to the FRS not achieving their goals, were their goals too robust, or did they just make some bad investments from the state side?
They used a rate of return contrary to what what they really should have used. They were using a 7.6% rate of return, which is
Pretty
quite high. The auditor, there was some consternation over that. Some counties' auditors will not issue an unclean opinion or a clean opinion because of that. But the Auditor General of Florida weighed in on that specific issue and had no problem with them using, because they based it on documented reasons why they used that rate. They just didn't accomplish that year. So there was no reason for our auditors to go with a modified opinion, and that's just all. Now, the other thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, the other thing is you got to recognize that liability is really not something that we would have to pay tomorrow. The only way that liability would ever come into play is if all people, both retired and currently working, who have an FRS benefit, would walk into the FRS building in Tallahassee all at once and demand all their benefits at the same time, which is not going to happen. So that liability is really more for financial reporting purposes. It doesn't really mean a lot other than that. So.
Okay. Second question, on the DOT State Road 60 reimbursement amount, do you remember what the actual dollar amount that was we received for them? Because it was a series of payments over years, right, that we got back.
What was the total original? 14 million,
yeah,
I believe.
There were two phases. I think they were about 14 or 15 million each. There was close to 30 million between the two. It was segments 66th Avenue to 82nd Avenue, and then 82nd Avenue to I-95. There were two installments, and it was the westward one that was finally
and this
repaid
was the
year.
last payment on phase 2, so we've got everything back that we lent them plus interest.
And when we lent them, did we advance or encumber any impact fee collection on this 60 corridor? So does that money go back into the general fund where it was advanced from?
Correct.
Okay. And last question, and you've done some great work on the collection of the short-term rental tax. Just an estimate, do you think we're now getting 20% of that market, or what? It's hard to measure what is the market that we're not getting, but...
It's hard to measure because we really don't know what's out there.
Right.
We're pursuing that aggressively, but it's really hard to put a number on that because we really don't know for sure what we don't know.
Right.
That's the problem.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks for that continued good work in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
And this is the PAFR. I'm going to be handing out a lot of these tomorrow at the Taxpayers Association
Good.
luncheon.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, for Peter. But just going through this, again, I want to give kudos to Laura MacGyver, who designed all this and got the photographs from different contributors. Indian River by Air is one of them, and some employees of the county are others. So thank you, Laura, for your great work there.
Yes, great work again.
As you see on the front, we have citrus, we have the lily pads, and we have the planes that were at the air show last year. So, and then the table of contents in my letter, just an introductory letter to the residents of the county, letting them know what this does. And the next page is about the report, and here you see the award for the first one that we did last year. And again, we will submit for the award this year along with the CAFR. It gives a little bit of a county overview and has the entire state there and where we're located and some facts and figures there. The next page shows the Board of County Commissioners and their photographs with the new commissioner, Susan Adams, in there.
That picture looks a lot better now that, with Commissioner Davis gone.
Definitely an improvement from last year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adams makes us all look a lot better, that rising tide is floating all the boats here.
But we still have the alligator.
Improves the eye candy a little bit. And it shows in the map there of Indian River County, it shows the districts and where your districts are highlighted. The next page is the constitutional officers and a little bit about how the board oversees what the budget for those county offices. And again, pictures of the elected officials. The next page shows major initiatives and accomplishments by the county. The Go Line bus transfer hub, which was currently under construction at 9:30. It's due to be opened, and they're having a ribbon cutting on April 24th, I believe. That's a $1.8 million facility being built, 3,410 square feet and on 1.6 acres of improved land. We also had the shooting range, skeet and trap improvements. A 15-station sporting clays course is also under construction. The total of that was $1.3 million, funded by impact fees and the optional 1-cent sales tax. 87th Street and 91st Avenue sidewalk improvements. That's also going to be funded by 1-cent sales tax and also grant proceeds. Fire rescue station number 14. It's due to be completed in fiscal year 2017. It cost $2.5 million. It's out there off 26th Street, west of 58th Avenue, west of Trillium. And funding is from impact fees and optional sales tax. The 800 megahertz radio system upgrade for all the county uses is underway. And that's a $5.9 million phased-in system over a 5-year period, funded by optional 1-cent sales tax. The Old Dixie Highway resurfacing from 71st Avenue to County Road 510. That's funded by Small County Outreach Program grant and gas taxes. 1st Street Southwest and 43rd Avenue intersection improvements. That's completed with a $2.2 million cost, funded by optional 1-cent sales tax. In 2016, the following projects were completed. The IG facility out on Oslo Road, which is a state-of-the-art recreation facility, was completed in August. 45th Street beautification project was completed, as was the 20th Avenue and 16th Street intersection improvements there at Vero Beach High School, and Fire Station number 1 renovations, which is now operational. And you see a big picture of a manatee there. So, the next part of the book shows the local economy and the principal employers. You'll see the number of employees that these 10 largest employers have and the percentage of total employment that they incur. Down below, you'll see the per capita income, personal income. We don't have 2016's figures yet. That's why it doesn't follow out to there. On the right-hand side, you'll see property taxes and the largest property taxpayers. We tried to accommodate what you had asked for last year, Commissioner Zork, in showing what they actually paid, but they have until April 1st to pay all their taxes, so we don't have a complete number, so we couldn't get it in here, but we can get that to you at a further time. Down at the bottom, you show how an example of the property taxes is that we collect is spread out between the school board, the county, emergency services district, special districts, and the land acquisition bonds. This is a typical property, an example of a typical property with $200,000 of value. Next page is government-wide financial statements, and it shows, again, on a high level, the statement of net position and statement of activities. And this is taken right out of the CAFR. The same thing is in the CAFR. And you can see that our assets, our net position increased by $18 million for the government-wide financial statements. Statement of activities, the net position, the revenues, again, charges for services were up, and operating grants were up, and property taxes were up, as I mentioned before in the CAFR presentation. And that's a beautiful view there of the north A1A going up to Sebastian Inlet is where that picture is taken from. Next page shows government fund revenues. Property taxes were up by about $8 million, from $76 million to $84 million. And you see the rest of it there broken down between intergovernmental, sales and use tax, permit fees, charges for services, gas tax, tourist tax, and whatnot. One point I wanted to make back on those projects that were either under construction or being completed, you'll notice that we never borrowed any money to do that. We paid for it as we go. That's a very good point to make out to the residents of the community, that we're not subjecting them to further debt service in the future and tax burden, because we're paying as we go. So that's very important to mention. Overall, general revenues increased from $170 million to $185 million. On the expenditure side, it shows public safety as the largest, obviously, and that's the sheriff and the emergency services district, and that's what government, or what the county is primarily set to do, is protect their citizens. The expenses went up from $164 million to $175 million, so our revenues went up larger than our expenses went up, so that's a good thing as well. And that's a picture there of the North County Aquatic Center during the Special Olympics, what's going on. So that's the general fund. You'll see here that the fund balance, the trend is up and down, but basically we're at $48.4 million of unrestricted fund balance. That means there's no restrictions on it whatsoever. We've got revenues on the right side, total revenues, total expenditures, and the change in the fund balance from 2015 to 2016. This chart shows the original final and amended budgets, and there was an $8.3 million increase in operating appropriations. That included $5.2 million in grants. However, we did not receive all those, so we didn't spend it. Next page is capital assets. Shows buildings and improvements, infrastructure, land, right-of-way, construction in progress, and equipment and intangibles. These pictures here are the inside and outside of the IG facility. And this is another good chart here on per capita debt. You'll see again back in the start of this Great Recession that per capita debt was at $981. Now it's down to $353 per capita. So over the 10-year period, we've reduced it 2/3 from what it was in the beginning of the recession. Cash and investments on the next page. At September 30th, we had $139 million in cash and cash equivalents, $101 million in U.S. agencies, and $86 million in treasuries, $12 million in other local government FLIGIT, which is mainly all that money is for the SWID closure costs of the segment that we're in now. As I've said repeatedly about the investments, we've positioned ourselves well to take advantage of the ensuing rate increases that have happened and will be continue to happen, so that you'll see a better return on our investments, and we'll be able to take advantage of those increasing rates. We've set ourselves short to be able to do that. The next page is just a picture of the Wabasso Bridge and the role of the clerk and all the many hats that I wear. If you've not seen my little presentation, I have hats, and this is actually a description of those 4 hats. On the last page, the last set of pages is a glossary of terms of what we mean by different accounting terminology. And on the last page there, we have how to contact your government, all the way from the local level through your representatives in U.S. Congress. Any questions? On the back page, we have different websites that you can access for different things through the clerk's office, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Jeff, no questions, but just another fantastic job. And if I could get a box of these delivered to my office, because I'd like to hand them out at my South County community meetings and get them out, because I think this is just a fantastic, fairly brief, very easy to understand snapshot of what the county is doing and where the money's going, and it's easy to understand. We can point to all the things we've built and done, and I thank you very much for putting this out. I think it's a fantastic tool, and again, congratulations on a great job.
It does it in layman's terms so people can understand.
It's really easy to follow and understand. And
we will have some delivered to you.
Good, thank you.
Jeff's got a budget, though. It'll be a small box.
Yeah, well.
Jeff, what a fantastic job once again to the staff. You point out the pictures, and the pictorials were carefully selected, but the information is easily digestible. And you said you're going to bring it to the Taxpayer Association
I'll be there tomorrow with it.
I would deliver them to all the doctor's office too, because they'll be using less anesthesia, because this is a very interesting book to look at, and all annual reports are not created equal.
No.
Many of them are very innocuous, and a lot of spreadsheets. This has accurate information that's easily digestible. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Any further questions? Well, at this time, we're going to take a brief recess. Thank you. Pull up.
Hey, you finally took your cookies home. Or your wife finally took.
The meeting will now be called back to order. And the next item on the agenda is item 10, which is public items, and which is a public hearing. And that's regarding the Prima Vista Corporation's request for abandonment of a portion of 129th Avenue, now being 93rd Avenue, and a portion of 130th Avenue, now being 93rd Court, within the Paradise Park Unit Number 3 subdivision, and that's right-of-way 17-02-01. This is legislative in nature, and we did have a public presentation, and it's come to my attention that there was a challenge with the corporation status. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there was a paperwork issue, so staff is recommending that we spare you the 87-slide PowerPoint presentation today and open the public hearing in case anyone has come to speak on this from seeing the advertising, close the public hearing, and then re-advertise this for a future date for another public hearing.
And we do have a time limit on the advertising, so that will be sometime in the near future when we get that advertised, and then will be public notice once again, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. With that, Stan, I guess we won't be doing a presentation today, so we appreciate your presence, but there are others here that may have come in anticipation of speaking, so at this time we will open the public hearing. This is anyone's opportunity that wishes to speak regarding this matter that may not be able to come when the item is actually re-advertised and rediscussed. Is there anyone here today that wishes to speak? Having given ample opportunity for the public hearing input, we will now close the public hearing. And this item will now be rescheduled, re-advertised, and reposted once the paperwork is completed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public notice items. Councilor.
Thank you very much. We have a notice of a public hearing for April 18th, 2017. This is Florida Power and Light Company's request for a special exception use approval for a private heavy utility Blue Cypress Solar Energy Center. This will be quasi-judicial in nature, and again, this will be a public hearing scheduled for April 18th. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Next item on the agenda, departmental matters, is community development. It's consideration for a request for a local jobs grant by a target industry company, application 2017-1, the first of our season. Stan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Stan Bowling, Community Development Director. As the chairman mentioned, this is the first local jobs grant application for the board to consider this year. As provided in Florida statutes, we are under a confidentiality rule right now at the desire of the applicant. So at this point, staff is not divulging the name of the company, but the company is in the financial services industry and is proposing expansion of a corporate office, which is a targeted industry. And we do offer local jobs grants for industries that are relocating to or expanding in the county that meet our requirements as a targeted industry. And our level of incentive is based upon the number of jobs and then the actual level of incentive by the average wage of a particular job. And it's a pay-for-performance type of setup where after 1 year of performing and verification through state revenue department records that they've met the hiring requirements, the number, and the pay scale for a particular position, then a portion of the award is given out in installments over a period of 3 years. Again, with this particular applicant, they're in the financial services industry. They are expanding, and it will be a corporate office with a location in Indian River County yet to be determined. Through the normal process that we go through for a local jobs grant, county staff, including the county attorney's office, as well as Chamber of Commerce staff and a committee with the chamber, review the application. That's been done in this particular case, and a number of resources have been used to essentially check out the standing of the company itself, and we found no problems or red flags with that. And in terms of this particular application, we're looking at a total of 15 potential jobs, 13 of them being in the 75% of county average wage to 100% category, and then 2 being between 100% and 150%. So the total maximum payout over a 3-year period would be $49,000, and that's what's reflected in the draft agreement that's in your backup material. Currently, the company is looking at hiring in 3 different phases. There is some flexibility, not only in the agreement, but also in the way we've structured jobs grants in the past in terms of hiring thresholds can vary by up to a year. Not a problem in working with staff to do that. But eventually, again, we're looking at a maximum of 15 jobs and a total of $49,000 over a 3-year period. Staff's recommendation, as well as the recommendation of the Economic Development Council, is that the Board of County Commissioners approve the jobs grant with a maximum of $49,000 for the company and authorize the chairman to sign the jobs grant agreement, which is in your backup material. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you have, and I believe Chamber Representative Helene Castletine, Economic Development Director, is here as well.
Thank you, Stan. Commissioners.
Stan, I know I've been working with staff on trying to come up with a way to simplify the reporting of these, both from county staff time and the applicants. And I know that county staff was going to try to run a few ground truths of some previous. Have y'all had a chance to do that yet? Or?
We have. We need to get back with you on that and get back with the administrator. But you're correct. What we're looking at doing right now is trying to simplify. Right now we have to track individual positions, and when an employee is replaced or promoted, that bumps them into a different category. It's quite laborious, and we're working on a method to redo that, to work with averages. So we should be getting back with you shortly.
Okay, yeah, because it'd be nice if we could roll that out and implement it with this one. But just go ahead and get back with me when you guys are ready, and we'll walk through it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that this is a great program. The Jobs Grant program has worked well for us. It's great to see a company that's already in Indian River County expanding further and taking advantage of the Jobs Grant. So with that, I'd be happy to move staff recommendation.
Second. Any further discussion here on the board? Helene, anything? We appreciate all your hard work in connecting the dots and making the straight line to the jobs coming forward and coming into the county during these rougher economic times in the past couple of years. It's been a lot more work, and I'm sure that we're seeing the rewards now, but they were slower, and this is the first one of the year. So we're very happy to see that. Peter, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, and we appreciate your support as well. For the record, Helene Castletine, Economic Development Director with the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce. And in speaking with the CEO of this particular company, they have been in town in Indian River County for 4 years, and he actually was looking at relocating to Palm Beach County. And in talking with him and telling him, explaining to him the programs that we have available and the resources that we have, he was having issues in finding employees. And so I've directed him to Career Source Research Coast, to Indian River State College, and other resources for him to try to find new hires. And then with this jobs grant program, of course, I think that kind of tipped it in our favor. So it's a very good company, and they are growing, and in fact the CEO has told me that he anticipates over the next 5 to 6, 7 years possibly having up to 100 employees. They do have locations outside of Florida as well, but they provide merchant services to many retailers locally and throughout the United States. So it's a very good company, and we're very happy that they decided to stay here in Indian River County. So thank you for all your help.
And does this involve a repurposing of a current structure?
I believe they're going to be looking at existing buildings, yes, and probably doing some major renovations to an existing building.
I know that worked very well for Gerard equipment, and who's probably one of the largest proponents of advertising and marketing for the Jobs Grants Program.
Yes.
But it worked very well for him and his business, and I hope that we can repurpose another building that would otherwise just be a shell.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question for Helene after this vote, if she could just hang by the podium for a second.
Okay. Oh, you want to wait till after?
Well, I think it's not specifically related to this one, it's related to a prior one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien.
It's Commissioner
Commissioner Solari, seconded by myself. Well, I assume always economic is. So that's Commissioner Solari, seconded by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Helene. Commissioner Zoll.
Yes, is there any Project Treadway updates?
We expect to make that public announcement sometime in May,
Okay.
possibly mid-May. So certainly
Okay, good.
you all will be notified, absolutely.
And that's another one that operated under the non-disclosure
Correct.
of who they are. But
Correct.
when the time's right, we will run around with banners and
You bet.
send
You bet.
invitations to people that used to be next to them from their prior location.
Right, right, and hope that their colleagues will also come down from New York City.
That's
from
right.
Manhattan. And that was actually an Enterprise Florida project that came our way.
Yeah.
So we're very happy that they decided to come to Indian River County.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Helene. Next item on the agenda is from the Office of Management Budget. Mike Smikowski is going to discuss the property casualty insurance for 2017-2018. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Smikowski, Indian River County Budget Office. I'm here to present an agenda item today related to the renewal of the property and casualty insurance coverage. And in preparation for the property casualty insurance renewal, which begins on May 1, 2017, staff worked with Arthur J. Gallagher Management Services to secure the most comprehensive and most cost-efficient property insurance program possible. As noted in your agenda item, there is a summary table that outlines the coverages. Overall, it's a 2.81% increase in renewal premium that reflects both increased property valuations. They were increased 1%, as well as adding the IG building to the coverage. And it also reflects increased payroll projections, which impact your workers' compensation coverage. Overall, the total renewal premium, as summarized in the table, is $1,418,132, which is a difference, an increase of $43,603 or 2.81%. The bulk of that $43,000 increase is concentrated in the property coverage that amounted to over $36,000 of the $43,000 increase. So workers' compensation went up slightly at about $10,000, and then there were just nominal changes in the balances of the coverages, which include cybersecurity, terrorism policies, equipment breakdown, inland marine, hull and protection and indemnity, and crime policies. So overall, the recommendation is to authorize staff to bind that coverage. Again, that would begin on May 1, 2017, at a premium of $1,418,132, and approve the annual broker fee of $175,000. I have Beth Martin is joining me this morning. She's the county's risk manager, as well as Erica Connick, who is from Arthur Gallagher, who worked with us on this renewal proposal. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Just, Michael, just so I'm clear on the two big kind of hits, the property and the workers' comp, the rate we're paying has stayed the same. It's just that we've added a building, property values have gone up, and that we've added payroll and new positions and such. But the rate we're paying has remained constant, is that correct?
Yes, it was a flat rate with a 2-year guarantee in the workers' comp, and it's a second year of a 2-year rate guarantee on the property as well, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move staff approval.
I'll second with just one more comment.
Please.
I like the box there. You know, it's not a full spreadsheet, but I actually, that was my favorite piece of this agenda. It was just,
Wow.
I'm serious.
I thought the CAFR would be.
No, this was new, and as I was, I didn't read through the CAFR, as I was going through the agenda, I did this, and I stopped. I mean, sometimes you have questions in your mind as you're going through this thing, and they were all answered there. And it's not the type of thing that people who do this type of box get credit for, but I just wanted to make sure that credit got where credit was due. It did bring that little uplift to me as I was going through the agenda, so I thank you for that.
Well, we appreciate your comments. Initially, we had that summary table more toward the back of the item, and we actually moved it toward the front, figuring if someone wanted the additional detail, it's there, but that kind of capsulizes the
highlighted the agenda item.
Okay.
Highlighting
Very
the
good.
agenda. Wow.
You set the bar high. I like that, Commissioner Solari.
Commissioner Zorc.
Yes, one question. After we experienced the unusual water claim event at the Brackett Library, I see under equipment breakdown, it references, includes a number of negotiated coverage enhancements. And I don't know if we could ever insure for what happened there, but it was a costly repair and had the facility out of service for about 4 to 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it was a water backflow problem that basically flooded the first floor of the library, and books and water don't go together very well.
No, sir.
And
Nor the computers.
Right. But the ship did.
Yeah, and that was a unique situation because the college actually had responsibility for the insurance for the building. We had responsibility for the contents. So that was an unusual one. They were doing the carpet and we were doing the books and the moving of the books and all of that stuff. So
okay,
it was kind of a unique and challenging situation, but we got through that.
Okay.
That type of loss would be covered under the property program, not the equipment breakdown,
Okay.
which you have a higher deductible.
Right, I was going to say, what's our self-insured amount?
My name is Erica Connick with Arthur J. Gallagher.
What's our self-insured amount for those types of events?
Hold on.
If, let's say it happened at our
If
library.
it's
not
just a regular flooding, you have a $100,000 deductible.
Okay.
As long as it's not in a special flood hazard area, then it would
Right.
be a higher deductible.
So even if it's rising water or lift station backup water, or it doesn't differentiate?
Yeah, that would be the property program. Unless, now with the lift station, if it was caused by the equipment, it could trigger the equipment breakdown too. So it just depends. It's
Okay.
complicated, unfortunately.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything further? And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? Thank you, team. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Utility Services Phase 2 Collier Creek Estates Subdivision and Phase 3 Harbor Point Petition Water Assessment Project Status. Vincent Burke.
Thank you again. For the record, Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. Get situated here. We have some folks that are in attendance from the properties that are just outside the initial area that was brought to the board back in March. So here we are for Phase 2, Collier Creek Estates, the remaining portion of Collier Creek Estates, in Phase 3, Harbor Point. Just a quick history. Back in March of this year, the board approved resolution number 3, as you know, for the Collier Creek Estates subdivision water assessment project utility phases 1, 1A, and 1B. There were 141 parcels in that assessment boundary. 100 of the folks were in favor at that time. A public hearing was held, and there was some concern from property owners who were not included as part of that Phase 1, 1A, and 1B assessment project. So there was discussion. Staff worked with the point person, Hank, who's here today, who's done a lot of work, as well as Dottie, to try to get where we are today. This was the original area outlined in black, the 141, where we have phases 1A and 1B that were added to the assessment area. But for today's purposes, we're going to talk about Harbor Point in the northwest corner here and the remaining portion of Collier Creek Estates. So we have 60 parcels. Phase 2 has 36 parcels for the remaining portion of Collier Creek. Phase 3 has Harbor Point, 24 parcels, as outlined in the black for Harbor Point, and Phase 2 that's bisected by Fleming Street for Phase 2. So in the original area, the water line has a cap and valve and a blind flange and is stubbed out. If this process were to go forward, we would continue that water line along Fleming Street and tie into Wave Street, which is just to the west of this area, to loop the services. So we had 5 scenarios that we were looking at. Scenario 1 was just the remaining portion of Collier Creek only, in which case we had 36 parcels. Only 21 out of 36 are in favor, or just over 58.33%, and is below the historic thresholds that we've used to move forward. And this scenario, which staff would not recommend, does leave out Harbor Point. So that's just the outlined area in red. So scenario 2. Just takes a look at, hypothetically speaking, if we were to combine the remaining portion of Collier Creek, even though we have 2 separate timetables, with all of the other parcels that are in the phases 1, 1A, and 1B, you would have 121 out of 177 in favor, or 68.36% above that threshold. So again, this is a hypothetical scenario, but we wanted to just show that. I thought Commissioner Solari might have liked our spreadsheet on the second page of the agenda, but the verdict is yet to be out on that.
Today, so Vinny,
Yeah, Vinny, you're
you're a little
grasping.
running for second place here, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, that does leave out Harbor Point, but we just wanted to show a hypothetical scenario if you were to combine those 2 areas. Scenario 3 does include Harbor Point. It is Phase 2 and Phase 3 for the 60 parcels that we had talked about earlier. Again, we have 38 out of 60 at this time. It's a little bit more than the numbers that are in your packet, just to know that there's some discrepancy between what was done at the time that the agenda was written, and the folks who are here today have done a great job in trying to get additional signatures. So there's some numbers that are different than what's in the agenda packet. But as of today, we have 38 out of 60, not quite at the 40 out of 60, at 63.33%. Again, phases 3 and phases 2 for those 60 parcels. Scenario 4 is a modified phase area 2A and phase 3, all of Harbor Point. In this case, we now have 32 out of 60 in favor, or 66.67. At the time, we only had 31, but we have had another signature since that time. Note that this does not, or this omits South Auriga Street. There's 12 parcels that are left out of this potential scenario. 5 of those have structures, and again, we'd have another one of, hey, what about me if we were to do this scenario? So just to illustrate that on the map, you see these areas on the south portion of Auriga that are omitted in order to try to get phase 3 and phase 2A, which are at the 66.7%. And lastly, the scenario 5 is if you were to include all of Collier Creek and all of Harbor Point, you'd have a sum total of 201 parcels. We now have 138 in favor out of those 201. Although they are separate time periods, we are at 68.65%. We certainly did the assessment procedures if this scenario were to be looked at. We would try to do resolution 1 and 2 in May. We have a tight time frame. We're trying to go out for bid in June of this year for the phases 1, 1A, and 1B, and our intent would be, if possible, to combine all of those parcels in order to combine that area to take economies of scale and perhaps get some better pricing from the contractor. We would still need to go through the scenario, and so we just sum totaled the areas. It's kind of formatted a little bit weird on your screen, just outlining, you know, the top scenario we've already done, the Collier Creek phases 1, 1A, and 1B. But again, if you're looking at just the Collier Creek, you're at over 68%, 121 out of 177.
But if you were to combine all of Collier Creek and Harbor Point, you're at 138 out of 201, or 68.65 or 65%. So with that being said, I just want to summarize that certainly combining all the parcels, even though they're at 2 different time periods, meets the threshold. It is in concert with the county's comprehensive policy, looking at the future land use element, FLUE, policy 7.9, for trying to minimize impact to the superficial aquifer system. The county's potable water sub-element, 7.1, restricting the use of new private wells for water supply. I must say that when Arjuna and I were at the Homeowners Association, there were 2 homeowners that were looking to build properties. And they said, what do? We need to get our CO now. They're going to have to punch a well in for a private well to try to get their CO. And if this moves forward, then they would then turn that over to an irrigation well and perhaps connect to the county water system. Objective 2 is by 2030, at least 75% of all existing residential units would be connected to a regional system. So staff would recommend a couple things. First of all, to authorize the purchasing manager to issue a purchase order to Cardin Associates. They provide professional surveying engineering services for an amount of $7,950 to do the design to do this topographic survey so that we can do the design, to direct staff to design phases 2 and 3, all of phases 2 and all of Harbor Point, and direct staff to submit the entire area to the FDEP for permitting. And the second part is to approve scenario 3 for the remaining portion of Collier Creek and Harbor Point, and to direct staff to bring resolution 1 and 2 back to the board for adoption at a future meeting. Certainly available for any questions that the commissioners may have, and there are some representatives that have sat for a couple hours that are interested in hopefully moving this project forward. I'm available for any questions.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, Vinny, but in the past, I've always tried to stick to the 67% threshold, and mainly because I think once you start going below that, it becomes a slippery slope. You know, if one time 65% is okay, and the next one's going to be 62, and then it just keeps going downhill from there. So normally, I have voted to stick with the 67%. In this particular case, though, given that we're doing the vast majority of Collier Creek, it just, in my mind, doesn't make sense not to complete the entire subdivision, regardless, you know, if we're just a couple percents off on how you want to look at the numbers. So in this particular case, I think I'm good with moving it forward to do the proposed scenario 3, which would include the remainder of Collier Creek and Harbor Point. It just, to me, I think it makes sense, and I think it keeps everybody in the neighborhood on a level basis, so you don't have one group of homeowners that have county water in their homes might be valued higher or resell better, and then you've got another cluster of neighbors that may not have that benefit and be at a disadvantage. So I just think in this particular case, it does make sense to complete the remainder of Collier Creek and Harbor Point. So certainly want to hear from the folks here today, but that's kind of just where I'm sitting on this right now. And thank you, Vinny, for all the hard work you've put in on this. I know when this was here before us back in March, we had several homeowners that were very upset that they may not be able to get in, or they might have to do it later at a different cost. And if this does move forward, if the board votes to move it forward, then this will all be wrapped up as one project, and everybody will be paying the same assessment. So I think that's a good point too. So Vinny, thank you in Arjuna for all your hard work and bringing this forward very rapidly to try to resolve this issue for these folks. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And well agreed. Arjuna has worked tirelessly on this project, and what a difference 7 years makes, doesn't it, folks? 7 years of going forward and downsizing the project, recarving the project, re-engineering. It cost a lot of time and a lot of grief by some, and by others, it was an awakening where, I guess, really good, clean, potable water, municipally supplied, was the right pathway. But it took some time, and let's go forward. Thank you.
Yes, two questions for Vinny. When we did the design for Phase 1 and the other sections, did we do that in-house or did we farm out that portion?
No, we did the design in-house.
You did, okay. And this is more of maybe a housekeeping item, but when some water projects we do, when we do the assessment, it may have outside engineering costs to do the design and it gets bundled into the assessment portion. If we do it internally, we're using staff time and staff value that has a cost towards the project, but we don't allocate it back, and I don't know.
That's correct. We try to keep the cost as low as possible for the homeowners and not charge the engineering that we do for this part of the project towards that.
And I didn't know, operating as an enterprise fund, if that's the right accounting methodology, or should we be allocating a portion of it? Obviously trying to keep the cost as low as we can, and I don't know how the folks that work on those projects are designated, if there should be some cost sharing for staff time for a capital project or not, and it's more of maybe an accounting procedure question that I'll go over with Jason, or if you have any. It would be small at best due to the scale of the job. It would be a very small amount, but just as an enterprise fund, it's supposed to be self-sustaining. When we do a capital project, we usually should allocate all related costs to the project, whether it's internal or external. And that's just open to your thoughts, Jason.
Right. I see it as largely a sunk cost. We've got the staff there already. Sometimes we go down this road as we've been on this one for 7 years, and we don't end up moving forward with the project. Right. We've still spent staff time, so obviously we're not charging anybody at that point. So I think the way we're doing it, not charging the folks, we're not recapturing all of our costs, but I think it's kind of the tie goes to the runner type of thing.
Right. Just
kind of do that small thing in favor of the property owners, just to keep that assessment just slightly smaller.
Okay. Because on the Summer Place sewer project, that was an outside consultant, and those fees would have been allocated in the cost to connect. A little different scenario, sewer versus water, but sewer is a little bit more complicated not necessarily complicated, but water's a lot simpler in my mind. Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Zoll. Commissioner Solari.
I hate to differ with Jason on this one, but I'd hate to look at staff as a sunk cost. Seriously, I don't like to go down that path. However, I believe it's our public policy to get more people connected with water. And just as when FP&L was here not too long ago on the fire tower, they indicated that they may work with things. Any good company does some community work. So I'm happy to look at it as that type of community work, which helps further our public policy. So I'd rather style it. It's picking hairs, I understand, but I'd rather style it that way. And I agree that this is something that we can move forward with. And we'd probably, or a good chance, it would cost as much to try to do the cost accounting and allocate it as it would to actually get exact numbers. So I'm also guessing, and this is actually a question for Vincent, is that sometimes when we have to go out for the engineering, it's because the engineering is a little more complex, or there's something with the development might have caused it. So I'm happy with the way it was done, and believe that if we can do it in-house, let's keep it as low as possible so we can get more people on the system and meet the public policy of providing for good potable water in the future.
Thank you. Well, we have anything further from the board? We do have a group of folks that have been patient, they're tired, they're hungry, and they're thirsty. And it looks like the waiting game paid off, or we're going to see that in a few moments. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come and speak or add anything further to this project, or any information that we need to hear? I knew we had a spokesman.
With a prepared statement.
Good morning. My name is Russ Lemoy, and I live on Ariga Street. And it seems at this point is that the board is in favor of, my gut feeling anyway is that it's in favor of combining Collier Creek and Harbor Point in regards to this scenario. So I would like to thank the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve staff options 2 and 3. 2 being to authorize the purchasing manager to issue the PO to Carter and to submit the entire Collier Creek and Harbor Point area to FDEP for permitting. And option 3 is to approve scenario 3 and to have staff bring back resolution 1 and 2 as soon as possible. And this would then result in all of Collier Creek and all of Harbor Point being hooked up to county water.
Second.
For discussion?
Commissioner Solari.
I just want to note that while utilities agenda item didn't get, my vote for the best spreadsheet, it has the pages in the back on the neighborhoods with the Ys and the nuts, and that does get my vote for the best graphics in this agenda.
Is this going to be a weekly thing with Commissioner Solari here giving out grades?
Well, I'm waiting for the tweets from the audience, if they come in really strongly,
I suggest next meeting you bring in some trophies so we can properly address the winners.
Then you best be careful with that.
I know. You gave Smokey Bear the honey trophy.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything further from the board?
Nope.
Nothing further from the community. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. And what a great way to conclude a meeting. Meeting adjourned.